There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang. It is another year with The Touch of a Mustang, and I am excited to see what is going to unfold this year. 2024 was not an easy year, but it was a good year, and it wasn't an especially hard year. So super good things, and a lot of good came from it. And I think this podcast is one of the big things that came out of that year for me, and just the people I've been able to connect with and the validation that I've been able to see by interacting with these people, how their experiences resonated with mine. And I am just really looking forward to what the next year brings. And I will be honest, a good bit of that excitement revolves around some of what I'm going to share with you today. So at the end of 2024, I did an episode with Lindsay from Peregrine Equine Therapies, which hopefully I pronounced that right. I did not pronounce that right. It's Peregrine. I want to make sure I get that right so that you guys can find her if you want to take advantage of it. And after we had created the episode, she contacted me. If you haven't checked that episode out, check it out. She does body work on horses. She also does communication with animals. And this is something that is pretty foreign to me, unfamiliar, something I'm very curious about. And so I was certainly interested to hear her perspective and see what she had to say about that. And after we had concluded the podcast episode and it had been published, she contacted me and offered me a complimentary session, which was so kind of her. And she said that one of my mares had presented themselves to her. And of course, that created even more curiosity in me. And initially, I figured it had to have been my Grula, Sylvanie. Sylvanie's the first Mustang I got. She's what I would say is my heart horse, a horse who changed so much for me. So I thought it was probably her. And on the other hand, I was a little hesitant because I thought, here, these Mustangs have something to say to me. What if, and this tells you a little bit about my psyche, what if it's that I'm not doing a good job? You know, they're needing to tell me things need to be fixed. And that certainly left me a little bit ambivalent. So when Lindsay does animal communication, she takes a picture of the animal and works in that way. And so I put off sending the picture for a little bit, just feeling a little uncertain, even though I certainly knew that if my animals wanted to communicate with me in that way, that is something that I wanted to connect with them on. And so it took a little bit. It was right during the holidays, but Lindsay sent back the things that she had seen and felt while connecting with my little red roan mare, whose name is Freedom, whose name seems to have a bit more significance after this experience. And I thought a little bit about this, and I think everybody probably wonders, is it real? And it's often something we don't widely accept in our culture, but a few things stand out for me. One is that some of these things were so specific to really experiences that I was the only one who participated in them. Nobody else could have known some of these things. The other is just touching on the power of our mind and that there is an internal guide that we have. And if something feels true, if we believe it to be true, it is true. And I just thought it was a really incredible experience. And so I wanted to share it for a couple of reasons. I thought it was a great in step into 2025. And I wanted other people to know that this is a possible option for people to take advantage of this service that Lindsay offers. And I feel like even this podcast was just a central piece of it. So let's get into it and listen to it. And, I was so fascinated by it. I would love to know what you guys think, if you've had your own experiences, if it's something you are interested in trying. If you are, I would be more than happy to connect you with Lindsay. She's the only animal communicator that I personally know. But for me, I would definitely say that it had some value. So what I'm going to do is she records a message for you, and I'm just going to play that recording and pause it here and there and kind of talk about it, and we'll see how it goes.
Hi there. So sorry this took a little while. When I wrote you, your strawberry mare had come in, and that first, this little brief message that she, this image she showed me was sort of this.
I'm going to pause it really quick because she had not really told me which horse appeared, and I was like, oh, it's probably my Grula. But here are my two mares. They are the two that I connect most closely with. And so the horse kind of presents herself. And this was from the first time before she had contacted me, some of the things she saw and felt. And so that's what she's talking about here.
How do I describe it? Like, kind of the way maybe like leprechauns are depicted, sort of like sparkling, little mischievous, sparkling eyes, kind of, trickster energy, which, to me kind of indicated like strong, strong energy, strong spirit. I guess I'd say spirited, very spirited horse. And she was like looking at you with like a lot of curiosity. But I got a sense just in that little brief message that there was definitely like a reason she came to your life, and that was what she wanted to maybe talk about.
Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about this mare. Her name is Freedom. She is a horse that we got off the internet adoption, and she was meant to be for my oldest daughter. It was right during COVID, everything was shutting down. I think we got her right before COVID started, and there's a lot that unfolded since then. Needless to say, she is now here with me. Things worked out, but not the way that I thought they would with my oldest daughter. Of course, I had this vision of her training this Mustang and having this great experience. And that wasn't the case. But I think, just like Lindsay said, she definitely came into my life for a purpose. She, like my Grula, came into my life just as some really huge difficulties unfolded for me. And so her presence was certainly significant in that way. When we did the internet adoption, there was actually a different horse that my daughter wanted, and it was getting close to the bid closing. Nobody else had bid on this other horse, and all of a sudden someone started bidding against us, and the bids went above what we were planning on spending for it. And then also we had some other horses in mind, and she was one that didn't have a bid. So that's how she came to be with us. And so much of how Lindsay describes her really resonates with the way she presents herself. She is absolutely just the sweetest thing, with a little bit of fire in her and a lot of spirit, a lot of energy, just like Lindsay said. So this again is from before we officially decided we were going to do an animal communication with my mares.
So then when I officially connected with her, both came through, and both your mares have really strong maternal protective energy, but it shows up differently, like it manifests itself differently. And the message they both, because they were showing me you also this way, like there's like the three of you together. You also have this strong maternal protective energy, and they seem like they're trying to say, you're doing a good job. You're a good mom. You're a good protector. But
Okay, so this was crazy to me because probably 2 to 3 days before Lindsay sent this, I was down below the horse corral doing some work, and I looked up and I saw Sylvanie, my grula, and she was just looking out over the mountains, observing the world around her. And I had this exact thought, worded differently, but I just had the same thought that we were both kind of doing the same thing. She is always the one that leads the herd, that looks out for the herd, kind of guides them where they go 90% of the time. And I really just got that sense that we shared that role for those we had some responsibility for as a protector, a nurturer, looking out and making sure things were okay for those we cared about. So it was crazy to me that that's something she specifically discussed, because it was that exact feeling that just like I was a mother watching out for my children, Sylvanie was doing the same for our little herd that we have here. And I loved the idea that they were sending the message that I'm doing a good job, because it has always been, since my first child was born, the area where I most wanted to succeed. Also, an area of really high anxiety, hoping that I was giving my children the absolute best that they could. So, really, just that message that, like, you're doing a good job. Really cool message to receive, particularly because some fairly recent events in my life in the external world could easily have allowed me to interpret my work and what I was doing differently, that I was messing up, I wasn't doing things right. So, just a really sweet message for me to hear, and especially poignant, interesting, validating that maternal instinct, that maternal role was something I had just felt, that message for myself.
they both seem to want to stress, like, don't worry so much. Don't stress so much. Don't worry too much. The Grula said, don't worry about her. She's okay. So I don't know if she's had some maybe health, maybe not even like very obvious health things, but if there's been times where you're like worrying about her, she's saying don't worry about her. She's okay.
Okay. This is another thing that hits maybe too close to home. Worry, anxiety is my thing. I worry about everybody. I want everybody to be taken care of. I want to do what I can to make sure people are taken care of. And so, yes, I think they clearly can sense that in me, that desire to care for the things in my life that are meaningful to me, and to make sure that people are doing okay. As far as health issues, my mare hasn't had any issues. There is something I can think about. It might be referencing and made me worry a bit for her. So I can see that could be that. It was certainly something that gave her a lot of attention in my thoughts. and worry about her. I think that could really be what that's referring to.
He came in with the second time that I connected, but she was standing on the outside, kind of watching, observing.
So I thought this was really interesting because at first I was thinking surely it was Sylvanie who would want to connect and communicate with me. And when Lindsay told me it was the strawberry roan, whose name is Freedom, it actually did make more sense because Sylvanie and I have really good communication. It is really easy for me to see what she's feeling, what she wants, how to interact and react with her. And that is not the case with Freedom. She is much more of a mystery to me. And so, of course, even though I thought I feel more connected with Sylvanie, I think it would be more needed between Freedom and I. And so a lot of this was also very interesting to me.
She's interesting because she's like soft but very strong. Where
And that describes Sylvanie the gorilla who's standing on the outside perfectly. She is soft, but she doesn't put up with stuff. She's a leader, is what I would say.
as your other mare is just fire, like fire, fire. And she showed me an image, of like lighting fire, like in within you, you know.
So this is interesting because Freedom, who I let you know was meant to be the horse for my daughter, we've kept her the whole time. She has just been a member of the herd. I haven't done a whole lot of training with her because focus has just been elsewhere. But I adore her. I love the time we have spent together, and we have done some things together. She's halter trained. She's doing great with a trailer. She has some explosiveness, and I can certainly see that fire with her. But I don't know if I would have seen it as much had I not received this.
Sparks, lots of like sparks and almost like synaptic connections, connectivity, conduit, electricity, these sorts of things, lots of like electric energy, was what I was saying. I also had this strong sense that there was some sort of like they found you for sure. Like they were. I don't know how to describe this. If you had, it seems like you know this, and you have a deep knowing that they were supposed to come into your lives. But if you've ever wondered if you were like projecting that, or thought maybe that wasn't real, that is very real.
So this is interesting for a couple of reasons. If you look at the Touch of a Mustang logo, it's a picture of Freedom, and it's just a picture that stood out to me. And so it's really interesting that she's the one that I kind of chose to represent this brand. That idea of just making connections, synaptic connections, creating energy, electricity, connecting things together is a really interesting one to me. I don't know that I have tons of insight specifically to that, but certainly I can see elements of that were initiated through my relationship with Freedom. And then she talks about how they were meant to be with me, how they found me. We were just meant to be. And she's absolutely right. I do have a sense of that, a very strong sense. My Sylvanie, the Garula, she's the first Mustang I got. And I got her. And then within a year, my life just completely changed. A lot of hard things happened. And a lot of times I will term it that she saved me. And it's not that she did anything to save me, but me being able to go out and to work with her quite literally kept me at a level where I could function. That was a point in my life when I had 6 children under 12 or 13, and things were really difficult. in several areas of my life. But having her and having this desire with her to build this relationship was really something that kept me grounded and kept me to where I could have a state of mind that I could successfully function in and still take care of my kiddos and my responsibilities. So that's when she came into my life. And then freedom came with my oldest daughter. And there's certainly a story there. But the short of it is that when she was 17 and a half, she one night disappeared, left me a note. Mom, I gotta leave. I didn't know where she was, who she was with. I didn't know if she was caught up in some dangerous stuff or if this was something with just friends. And she sent me a message later that night on a phone. She had left her cell phone behind on a different phone that was like, hey, it's me. I'm okay. Um, Certainly, despite everything that was going on, she knew that would be meaningful to me. And so when she left, freedom was left with me. And it was a decision she made because of things she needed in her life and just the interplay of our relationships. And I can certainly look back now and see the growth and goodness that took place from it. Now we have a absolutely beautiful relationship. She is married and living a fantastic life. But this moment, yes, this happened with her, but because of the way it played out, it caused me to question so much about myself. I had put everything in my life aside, prioritizing motherhood, careers, education, jobs. Still had them, but they were always secondary to my role and being there as a mother. And the way it played out, like, just gutted me. And again, I was devastated when it happened, torn apart. It was like everything I had worked so hard for the last 17, 18, 20 years of my life just imploded. And to me, this was not a truth, but what I was telling myself, it was telling me, like, you're terrible. You're a failure. This is like not what happens to anyone who's doing a good job as a mother. Now I can look back and I see it so differently. And I can see that this interaction we had helped me to make changes that have been very beneficial for myself and I believe for my family as a whole and for my children. So when she says that these two horses found me, they each in their own way came into my life at extremely pivotal ways that completely changed the outlook of my life. There is this quote that I saw recently, and it said something to the effect of course, everything in your life is falling apart. You have to lose your old life to get your new one. And that describes perfectly what happened in my life. Every foundational element that I had relied on was torn down and destroyed, and it was devastating. So, so hard. And now I can see that where I'm at today, I couldn't have reached that if it hadn't been torn down. And pieces of it were left that I rebuilt with, but really, that's totally true. My life had to, in many respects, be totally wiped clean to rebuild a new, better life and a new, better me that was stronger. And I think the biggest thing, really, kinder to myself. And there were a lot of big things I learned, but I think that was probably one of the biggest. So, yes, these two horses helped me to remain stable through that time, like quite literally. And again, it wasn't that they touched me and it changed something, but like I've talked about some before, being with them, I had the space I needed to develop in the way that I needed to grow.
And it's like guardian angel, divine presence kind of situation where they came into your life. And when I was seeing this, my right ear started to ring. And when I'm doing readings, for people, when that happens, it usually, well, not, it always is indicating that someone, and it may not even be somebody that maybe you've known, but somebody in your ancestral line who's crossed over is like is coming in and saying like they want it to be known that they're there. So I don't know if that means anything to you or resonates with you. It usually is a person, but it could just be, um, you know, guardian angel energy or some divine spirit, God, something bigger than you, wanting you to know that you are being looked out over, something's protecting you. You have protection. You have something really looking out for you.
Okay, so when she talks about the horses being guardian angels, that's exactly how I would describe it. Again, it's not like they could step into my life and change something, but it was just their presence and having them as a place to go, especially when things got really hard or when I was really searching for answers. Like, absolutely, 100%, they were guardian angels, and I could go with them and have this space to. How I would describe it is to kind of reach my intuition, a greater knowing, and to find the answers that I needed. She also talks about the ringing in her ears, and that's something I was curious about. Something that also happened during this period of time is that my husband and I, our family, decided to no longer attend a religious organization that we had been very closely aligned with. And it was devastating to me because of the way some things had played out. That's why I felt it wasn't serving me well. And I took the way things played out and I would relate a lot of this to my programming, that I'd come to relate God, a divine creator, someone, bigger than us, as very closely correlated to the organization of the church that we attended. And I was pretty clearly rejected from that organization, ostracized. And the initial feeling I took with that was that was God doing it to me. Now I see everything so much differently, but the idea of knowing God was there, a divine creator, or even someone from my ancestors was there, was pretty huge because, for one, a lot of the ancestral stories that are told in my family are closely aligned with this religion and their commitment to this religion. So when that relationship was fractured, it did, in a way, feel like I was cut off from God, my ancestors, everything. This was one thing. Lindsay always gives you the chance to kind of come back and ask questions if you have something you're curious about. And she offered that to me. And so this is one thing I asked about, and she explored it a little more. And she said that it really felt like it was something bigger, God, creator, universe. I see it all as the same, even though I think we describe it differently. This greater power. And that also resonates. I certainly felt very specific moments where I felt the presence of something divine. One of those that stands out more than probably any other is the afternoon that after which my daughter would run away. I had hiked back into the mountains, and we had gotten into an argument, disagreement that morning. And a lot of times I can feel anxiety about that. As we learned in this, I tend to worry a lot. But on that morning, I didn't have any of that anxiety, any of that angst surrounding it. And I was just sitting on the backside of the mountain and backed up to wilderness that just goes on as far as you can see. Nothing out there but mountains and nature and earth. And I just felt this tremendous sense of peace that carried me through big time through those challenges. And then also, I've always really felt that God, the creator, the divine, really put Sylvanie and I in each other's paths. So those are two times where I'm a doubting Thomas, you could say. I lack belief in myself that I can connect with the supernatural or spiritual or divinity a lot of times. But those two times, beyond a doubt, I felt God's hand in my life, creating those experiences, giving me those things, uh, lining things up for Sylvanie and I to be in each other's lives. So, again, Lindsay and I have known each other. We've talked 2 times, 3 times, maybe by the end of this, like 5 times. And so it's not like she would have known any of this, but certainly just messages that resonate deeply with me and my experience.
If that makes sense. And that is connected to these two mayors coming, and being with you. You're all very, incredible, connected souls, basically.
I love that word souls because it's it's often one of the only ways I can use to describe the feeling with horses is like it is something in my soul that is connected to them. I've said this a lot. I don't think it is horses for everybody. I feel like for other people in my life, they don't get that same connection with horses that I do. Kids, husband, friends, whatever, they don't necessarily understand that. But yeah, it really is a soul thing, something, my spirit, soul, something deeper, more lasting and divine within me feels towards horses. It's hard to describe, as you can probably tell.
Deep knowing and understanding of each other. Similar traumas, seems like, wounds, and just deep understanding of what it's like to be each other, if that makes sense. Then I got pause. Sorry, I had to pause and look up my note really quick. Then this other image that came in, I don't really know what to make of this. I'm not gonna interpret it. It's gonna be something that you'll have to interpret. I saw an image of your throat, like the notch, right between your clavicles, right there, very up close, and then your hand touching right there at that notch. And I could sense a lot of emotion here, and something about your voice. And I don't know if it's that, like, you need to use your voice, which you are with your podcast.
This has a lot of significance for different ways. For the work that I'm really engaged in now, it certainly does involve my voice that you're listening to right now. And it's even more significant because I guess there's some particular beliefs I told myself, especially about my voice. It seems so silly, but there was a time when I think we were singing songs in church and one of my sisters made a negative comment about my voice. And it's, sometimes people say stuff and for some reason, this one thing will stick with you. And that one did. And it was not in a positive way. You know how siblings are if you have children or if you've been a sibling. And it's something that always stuck with me. Insecurity that I always had. And then I started the podcast, and actually, my voice was something I was self-conscious about. I wouldn't say most self-conscious because there were quite a few things that I was pretty self-conscious about starting it, but certainly my voice was one of those things. And it was also something I was sharing a lot on social media with different reels. One thing I love doing is writing, and then you have to figure out how you can share that writing. And often that was with my voice. And so I would share these things, but not necessarily feel great about it, feel self conscious about it. I would. And then I would start getting some feedback about that my voice was actually good. And it was hard to take in at first. Like, I almost felt like, are you pranking me? Because my sister said this 20 years ago. Certainly, that is the truth. More than 20 years ago, 35 years ago. Certainly, that is the truth about my voice. And so that's one really interesting piece about it. Another one, Lindsay and I have talked since then, that was interesting is I kind of mentioned to her, I started this podcast on a whim. Like, I got the idea in my head. I threw it off like one or two people. And then I just did it. And I felt so weird doing it the first time. Even now, sitting in here talking to myself is an odd experience. But one message that came for me in a lot of ways was also about my voice. And so life kind of fell apart. Then we got this grand idea to build in the mountains, which is an experience itself. And then the other half of my life fell apart spiritually, family wise, children. And in that time, as part of the process, as part of the processing, I began writing poetry. And a lot of those very first poems, which I embarrassingly shared online on one of my Instagram accounts, talked about my voice, how I felt that I wasn't able to use it. People didn't want to hear it. I had the impression that I wasn't worthy to share it. And so this all kind of culminates in this experience of where I now have this podcast that I'm super excited about this year that people are responding to, and these incredible connections are being made. And so I think that's certainly part of what this focus is on my voice, which I can absolutely see having heard this, but I don't know that it's something I would have necessarily identified on my own as such a central piece of just my experience with horses and just personal development lately.
So it could mean you are on the right path, using your voice in that way. Seems like this is important. Like this is an important holding place of energy for you that needs to be released.
And it's also very interesting because for years, like I probably started 50 blogs that no one ever saw because like I felt this internal need to share things, share experiences, to use my voice. Then blogs were the big thing. Podcasts weren't really a thing. They probably were, but not a well-known thing. And I would just keep, nobody ever said anything negative. Like I said, most people never even saw them, but I would always talk myself out of it time and time and time again. So when she says it's something central, I think this past year, one big thing for me has been aligning with my purpose, kind of falling in line with my purpose. And I think it's really closely aligned with sharing my voice, as awkward and weird and uncomfortable as sometimes it feels internally. And I can feel it right now. Internally, it's something that's meant for me. And it's easy to dismiss, but as I just sit here thinking about it, it resonates. I can feel it physically that this is something that I'm supposed to be doing. And a lot of my life, I have waited for someone else to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. I was a good student. And so often teachers tell you, you should do this, you should do that. This is meant for you. In the religion we were in, there's a hierarchy of servants, and that I often relied on, depending on what positions I would be asked to participate in. That I often left up to somebody else. And so it's a new thing for me to be listening to this internal guide and to say, no, this is real. I can feel this, and it's it's real. It is as tangible as the computer in front of me. Like, I know that I can feel this internally. And I've never said that with that amount of certainty. It's kind of been like, I suspect that maybe I could do this. And so I'll tiptoe into the water and give it a try. So, really, a new thing to feel that assurance.
And to keep using your voice. But I also felt like there was something stuck there. Something like, so if you've had a situation where you feel suppressed, or you couldn't speak out, or you couldn't advocate, tap into that. That when I was kind of feeling that, that's also when your strawberry mare came in big.
Okay, so this next part is really cool. It's really exciting. I really love it. But yeah, as you can tell from just some of the things I've shared with you, there has been a lot of hindrance. I would say self-imposed hindrance, and hindrance from the programming I received from the world around me to believe that this was meant for me. Certainly feelings of inadequacy, unworthiness, that yes, other people could do this, but I wasn't that special. And I think for everybody, that call to what you should do is a little bit different. But I do think that there is a place of knowing, and that if we can trust that knowing, if we can lean into that and even experiment with it, I would say that's what starting the podcast was for me. I was just experimenting with this idea to see where it might go. And even now, it's still easy to doubt. You look at something and think, I put so much time and energy into that, and it didn't go very far. Yeah, it's really easy to doubt, but deep down, if you lean into that thing, for everybody, it won't be your voice. For other people, it's using your hands or healing other people. There are other things that are meant for you. And just because somebody's not telling you, that's what it is. I think if you turn inwards, and another thing, if you turn back to what attracted you as a child, I think those are two really good guides to lead you in that direction. I would say just a year or so ago, I was tormented by the desire to find a purpose, and this really feels like a piece to that puzzle.
And there's some entanglement there for both of you. Maybe have had experience where you weren't heard or weren't seen, and it's liberating her when you are liberating yourself. I think you will do a really good job of trying to really hear her, and I can tell she's kind of all over the place. She can be hard to.
Yeah, that is so true. This mare is so ambivalent. She's halter trained, but whereas my other horses, they'll just walk up and put their head in the halter, like, please, let's go hang out. She sits there and bobs her head in and out and thinks about it and comes and walks away. And that's just kind of an example of it. But yeah, she has a pretty acute ambivalence around if she wants to be around people. And part of this will be interesting too, because for a long time I just took it as like she is just not a fan of people. But so I sense that energy that just resonates, and is fun to see and hear and connect the dots on that.
It's sometimes hard to hear, but when you do, she really notices it. And that was like this connectivity and electricity that I was saying. It was like these connections are being made.
So that's really cool, because she's a cool little mare. Once she's brave enough to get the halter on, she changes instantly. And it kind of goes that way with a lot of things. She's had this thing where she doesn't like to walk out the gate of the corral. It has a top piece you have to go under. And so she'll hesitate there a lot. And only with the halter on. If she does it on her own, she'll just walk straight through, like when the horses are let out to pasture. So, yeah, that's fun.
Helpful for both of you. But yeah, this thing about your.
But yeah, so once she's out, she is a brave little soul. She will try things that I'm surprised at. So I've been working on trailer loading, and Sylvanie still isn't great at it. She's a horse where it's like if you can get her to be comfortable, she's solid on it, but it's going to take a long time to get her to be comfortable. I don't trailer much. We trailered for the fire for emergencies, and so occasionally, like we'll go somewhere with the trailer. She doesn't usually because she still doesn't do great at getting in. So anyway, I've been working with her, Sylvanie, and Freedom in the trailer, and I worked with Sylvanie, and it's just this long, slow process with Sylvanie. And then I got Freedom after her, and she was kind of hesitant to be around the trailer. I gave her a little space, and then I pulled her a little bit, come on, it's okay. And the next thing I knew, she surprised me, like literally scared me because she jumped in the trailer. So yeah, it's interesting to see how she reacts to interactions with me.
Your voice, connections are being made, and it's helpful for both of you. But yeah, this thing about your voice, very important. From there, that image went to you very abruptly, and all of a sudden, you're riding on the strawberry mare.
So just for context, she's not saddle trained right now. So could be lots of meaning behind that.
And the girl is behind you, and you guys are.
And I guess another thing that's really interesting is a lot of times I don't end up getting tried Sylvanie anymore because my kids or someone else is riding her. So I found that interesting that she was maybe behind.
Running at a complete, loping, fast sprint, with this almost sense of like urgency, and you're going to the right, and on like a cardinal map it would be due east. In like shamanic stuff, when an image or something is relayed and there's a very distinct line direction, like to the left would mean going back to the past, to the right would be going to the future. So this also did, and it's not, and moving forward represents something else, north and south, but definitely when it's either left or right, so west or east, kind of, those can mean very different things, and you are going very hard to the right, going east. I want to use both terms of right and east, just in case saying east means something to you. It felt like I should say that. You're go.
So I think that's interesting. This is certainly something I'm still digesting and exploring. But yeah, the direction east could possibly mean something. For sure, the direction forward means something. A big struggle for me, especially when we moved up here, was looking backwards when it felt like things were better. And I think a lot about in the Bible, the story of Job's wife and how they were leaving Sodom and Gomorrah, and she looked back and turned to salt. And a lot of those Bible stories I don't fully grasp, I don't understand, but hers has been one that has really resonated with me during this transitional stage of my life. And I guess for me, I don't think she really turned to salt, but I think that for all of us, we can spend so much time looking back at what was, looking back at things we miss, times we long for. And I have lots of things that I just have loved in life that is like, if you had a chance to go back there, oh, I would just take it. And I think if we spend too much time there, it can ruin our path forward. So I don't know that that's specifically what this is talking about, but I definitely have a strong feeling and connection with the importance of moving forward, looking forward, and not getting stuck in the past. And I think she kind of alludes to even my feelings of that.
You're going east, just in case saying east means something to you. It felt like I should say that. You you're going very fast, and it seemed like oh my gosh, and I forgot before. Sorry, it was the throat, and then the gorilla came. She's been sitting out on the sidelines kind of watching, and she came in and ran like really quickly a circle around you. That was the first part.
So I don't know exactly what that means. If I can lay a finger on it, I think it could allude to some other things, but just really cool visual to kind of ponder and meditate on.
Very much like in a protective, like rounding up, herding up. And that's when, and you got on the strawberry horse and you guys took off.
And I think just that part about her being a protective force around me certainly has some truth, some validity into how she protected, preserved my mental state. 100%. I think it could be reference to that. I think it could be something I haven't yet learned.
So it was, and because of that, and her entering, circling, that was what this sense of like urgency. So it wasn't just like you guys are going out for a trail ride and it got spicy, it got fun. This was more of like, we need to leave, we need to get out, we need to go. And it seemed to indicate there's something either in your past that they want to keep you from, they don't want you going back to, or there's still something, but it seems like it's connected to your past. There's something, it is heavy. I could feel it. Like there was this heaviness around it. And they want to get you away from this. Like, don't go back to that. At one point.
So, yeah, I don't know about all that. That's something I'm still giving more thought of and have ideas around. Something to think on.
You stop. You stop the horses and you turn around and you're looking back, and I can see you're staring back where you just came from, and you're just pausing, and it's like you're really thinking and you're processing, and it's like you're indecisive, or there's this thing pulling you. I don't know. I don't want to use too much like me interpreting it, but
so yeah, this is all interesting. I think it could relate to several things. I am definitely have some indecisiveness in my life. You can ask my husband and he will more than readily attest to that. Again, I think I have a tendency to look back, to long for other times, to something my husband and I have talked about. Sometimes it's like you just want to recapture the past, so you almost ruin the present moment. And certainly doubts, insecurities, uncertainties about a lot of the work I'm doing. I think it could refer to that. And I could also see the urgency, because if I jump into things, I tend to be better than if I think on them too much. So not as clear on that one, but I could definitely see some places of applicability. And I also feel like that could definitely be something that opens up in the future.
It was like this, it's like you're indecisive, or there's this thing pulling you. I don't know. I don't want to use too much like me interpreting it, but it was like this out, or I don't know, or something. I don't know. Maybe that was not the right word. You're sitting there really looking back and thinking a lot, and then they decide, no, like you're dwelling on this. No, you cannot.
Well, and an interesting part of that, how she said they decide. I feel like if I didn't have, I've thought about, like I told you before, a lot of ways I wanted to share myself with the world, or places I felt like I could contribute. But it was really this transformation, this, I don't want to use the word saving, because I don't think they saved me. I think I had to do my own work, but this guidance that they gave me, that the Mustangs helped me to find, is really what propelled me to use my voice, to speak up, to start sharing stuff. And so I think that could be a really interesting piece to it.
Saying that whatever it is that they're trying to not have you have be a part of your life anymore, if that.
Yeah, I mean, that could really touch on so many things. And I can think of some specific examples where I've really questioned my self decisions. Is this the right way? And not because of anything I felt internally, but because of external pressures. So just another one that I can see, but also more to contemplate.
Makes sense. And then they start running again. I don't know, a little bit
cool.
into this running, I see you just like kind of open. It's like you all of a sudden you realize like you kind of just really let go of that. Like you're far enough away from it, you let go of it, and I see you just like open up your arms, and you're like your whole, you start to glow, and like your big, kind of bursting big energy, and it seems like, oh, you're on the right path, and like whatever you're going towards is better. And it.
So that to me is just a really cool visual. Actually, just a little bit before she sent this message, I was kind of really debating, like, should I keep doing the podcast? Is anyone listening? You see some of the big podcasters and they're getting millions of views on theirs. And, on the ones that are good, I'm getting thousands or hundreds. And so it's really easy to lean into that doubt, or, just no, it must not be meant for you because you're not meeting these other milestones. But yeah, just before this, I was kind of, I don't know, is this something that I should continue? Is it really adding any value in the world? And when I talked to Lindsay afterwards, she really just emphasized, like, yeah, it seems like things are going to be going in the right direction. And I would say I've even felt that. And a lot of that hasn't necessarily been with views. A lot of it has been with these connections that I've established with other people who have also felt how powerful horses are and are down their own paths that they've been called down, are doing this same work, and the ability to join up with that, to join them, to help them, and vice versa. That's something that has really started to unfold just recently. It's just coming up on a year, I think. I think the first one I published was in February of last year. So really interesting and exciting, but she talks about that bursting energy, and I have definitely had times where I've talked with someone or completed something that I put out there to share and just really felt that bursting energy. And so I can't say that I've experienced all this, but I can say what a really, really cool message to get. And I think a lot of it's dependent on, what I choose and my choices, if this is something that comes to fruition. But certainly hearing something like that makes me think this could be incredible.
And you seem, I don't know, really happy.
And yeah, I would say that's true. This has really all given me a sense of purpose. I've been in a tricky stage of life where I used to homeschool and stay at home with all my kids, and I always work in there, but they are all really transitioning into adulthood and moving out and getting their own lives. And, it's like, oh, there's my heart and soul walking into this new life that I'm so proud of them for, but in which I have a new role. And I can easily translate that as I'm left behind. But no, I'm still with them. I always will be, but I have this new role. And sharing the message of the Mustangs really has made me happy. And one thing that Lindsay and I also talked about was it feels really weird to share yourself sometimes. Like, am I oversharing on the internet? Why are people going to be interested in this? And so I can definitely second guess and doubt when I make it about me. But the reality is, my message is, and it always has been, that I know that there are other people out there who are having or have had struggles that felt just as hard and difficult as mine did. And I know that there's Mustangs out there that need help and compassion and people to step up and care for them because we've brought them into our world. And so I know that this message, maybe I am sharing my experiences, but this is not a message about me. This is not saying much of anything about me except sharing what I have learned. And I really am just the messenger in all this. I get this awesome opportunity to share these messages and to even just be the conduit so that other people can share their stories that have experienced things similar to me. And so that was a really profound moment for me to feel aligned with why I am doing it. And that is to help people and for the horses.
And you seem, I don't know, really happy. Just content, I guess.
Yeah, that's one cool thing about 2025 is at least part of it was the first year in since I got Sylvanie, which was almost 9 years ago, that it was just not a year constantly fighting turmoil and struggle. And I had moments where, which is really cool and also crazy, where I could just feel happy, like I'm happy here. Things are good. I've certainly felt that before. And so it's not the first time I felt that, but I do think it's the first time that I've felt like, and it almost feels silly to say it out loud, but I just know it's the reality. It's the first time I felt like I liked myself, like I have something worth value, something to contribute, and that I have a God, a creator who is pleased with me, who loves me, who sees me as their creation and is excited to help me not fix myself, but learn and grow and unlock my potential.
So that was that part of that. Again, in all of this, really had the strong sense that I was seeing the three of you, but there were other elements, other, forces that were supporting you.
And I can think of so many people for the support, of course, my family, but just again, those connections that I've been able to make and just the incredible people that are out there
around you. And then I ended that communication session. Was going to just record everything, but I really felt like, okay, I feel like there's just something else. So I did a last session, and just a few little things came in. The strawberry mare did show me her left shoulder and right back hip.
So I'll let her kind of go through this, but the cool thing is Lindsay's going to kind of help me look at this, learn some technique and stuff, which I'm excited to. That's a new world for me to explore. And then also with my strawberry roan, she was just running out in the pasture and she kind of just had an odd movement. And I think it might have been, I'm not sure if it was after or before I listened to this, but it did kind of give me the impression like something's just a little bit off.
There's something there, and there is like a fascial line that connects there. Something, and when I was kind of putting my hand on her left shoulder and up towards her neck, she would really elongate and stretch her neck. It's like, like, and she liked having just kind of pressure on, on the like subscapular muscle area.
And so I guess the other thing I want to say is after Lindsay has taught me a little bit, I'm gonna try and record this, and if I manage to work this nice service for my mare, I will definitely be sharing that.
Up into her, neck muscles, and then when I went back around to her right hip, I just kind of pushed in, and she did this big stretch of her back leg. So I don't know if she's asking for that, and maybe that's something I could like take a video of like what I saw. Like I could demonstrate it on one of my horses and kind of like show you how to do this kind of pressure technique that could help alleviate some tension that she's having there. I don't know if that is something that you want to do, but if you do, I'd be happy
so we're going to do that.
She was kind of asking for that, but then it transitioned into, I did see a pretty kind of sad image of something from her past where she was not treated well. It's hard to say exactly. I don't know. She just showed me a little bit, but it's definitely somebody pulling, restraining her.
So this was really interesting. I don't know her experiences before she came to us, but definitely this summer there were some moments where I would say she experienced it with us. One was we had a fire not even a mile from our house, and so we were evacuating the horses and trying to get everybody in the trailer, and she had not been trailer trained. And the first time we tried to get her in, it was kind of, let's put some pressure and release on there and put the pressure. But when she felt the pressure, yeah, she got free. She took off down the hill. It was all fine. We just found a different strategy to get her in. But certainly she did not like that. Another time was a big learning lesson, which I actually have a YouTube video of. It was after the fire, and I was thinking, okay, if you're going to live in this domestic world, I got to prepare you a little bit better for it. And certainly an area where I felt like I need to do more to help her. And so we were working on being tied up so she could be tied up in a trailer. In general, I don't tie my horses really ever. Even when we're tacking them up, we just stand there. So she was tied up and she had a quick release knot on, but she just got a little anxious, and she was doing fine. She was doing really great. Standing there pretty calm. She started to get a little nervous, and then she backed up in a branch, hit her head, and she just lost it and, was fighting, absolutely terrified. I felt terrible. Anyway, it was probably maybe 3 seconds. I had her released, but this certainly is representative of her and her feelings. And so I don't know if something else happened in addition to that, but it certainly could have been one of those two experiences. And this idea that she does not want to be forced to do something is right on target, because she will be very willing if she's given the space to choose it on her own. But yeah, if I just tried to pull her in the trailer with pressure and I wouldn't give any release to that pressure, she would fight it. Something I've really learned from a book related to trauma. So a lot of times we have trauma because we feel like we couldn't escape the situation. And so we have this sense of hopelessness. And so with her, when she struggles is when I release her. I feel like for her, that gives back that feeling of empowerment, that she's not trapped. That's how I taught her with her hooves. She would pull away from her hooves. I would not just sit there and hang on to it and do a little rodeo on her hoof. When she started to struggle, I would let her have it back. Let her know, like, no, you're not stuck here. And so that's been something that's been pretty significant with her, certainly true to her.
I don't know. She just showed me a little bit, but it's definitely somebody pulling, restraining her, and she's trying to get away, and she is a fighter. She was really pulling back and fighting, like in a way that, like, I don't necessarily know that the person was like harming her. It just was not a good fit. They definitely were not consensual, not listening to her. And Oops. she would just, like, I got the sense that she would rather die.
Yeah, that's 100% how she acted when she was tied up.
To the point that, like, it, could harm her than give in. She's definitely a fighter. I do think this was something really from her past, but it could be more just an image as like an analogy, or just her like trying to symbolize, like trying to put in an image of like how important it is for her to be heard.
Yeah, and I think it could definitely have been those experiences. That was definitely descriptive of those, even though it was very brief moments. I know and even though she was safe, I know that she felt very much in danger both of those times. But also definitely a message for like, and one I feel like I've caught on to, but this solidifies that. The way to approach her, which is she needs the space to decide on her own, or it's going to be a dangerous situation, truthfully.
Her independence, and like she wants to have partnership for sure, and like I think she finds it like fun and engaging, and it's curious, but like she has to be listened to. If she feels trapped or stuck, she's gonna fight. And then I saw an image of you come and you stand at her back right side, and you just place your hand on her hip, and all of a sudden that pulling, that whatever is forcing her to, it just disappears.
That I thought was pretty cool because that is exactly where she likes me most to stand, is on her backside right there with my hand on her hip. And she's always accepting of that. When you're up by her head, she shows that ambivalence that we talked about before, where she's like, I don't know, like honestly, just shaking in and out, physically indecisive about where she wants her body to be. Like, I want to go with you, I don't want to go with you. But with my hand just on her rump like that, she is always comfortable. It's always been a place where she's felt okay with humans to be. So super interesting that every time I'm with her, she would turn and be perfectly happy with me just kind of laying my arm across her right there.
And I really took that as a strong message that she feels very safe with you, that you protect her, that you've literally got her back.
And I think that's something cool, and a good reminder to us. Even if those were experiences where she felt really tied down, out of control, were from the experiences she had with me. It's not permanent. Our horses are pretty forgiving, pretty open to what will come next. And that's something I feel like is true with that.
And yeah, so that felt important to relay. Then the last image, I saw you sitting on the ground.
Okay, so this is cool because all of the time, and I could just visualize myself doing this, when they're out at pasture, I will just go out there and sit in the field with them. I'll take a notebook, I'll take a book, just read and sit down out in the field in the middle of them. So um, I could very easily visualize this.
Then the last image, I saw you sitting on the ground, just sitting, and then they go nose to tail, and they start circling around you, and they just keep doing this and keep doing this, and they're just circling around you for a long time while you're sitting in the middle. And it seems like you were in like a calm, it's like almost like I felt like they were trying to like create space for you to, like, it seemed like healing.
And I will say, when I'm just out there in the pasture, that is like a sacred space. It's just a calm, relaxing, peaceful place for me. And just what a neat idea to think of them providing that space. They've obviously, not obviously, but they haven't ever done that where they've circled me in that way. But what a cool visual to what they have done for me with my mind.
Like, we're, like they were trying to say, we have your back, like we're gonna protect you, you deserve to heal, to rest, and we will provide that for you.
And that just to me is such a beautiful visual. I think it's one most moms can relate to. You don't necessarily get the down healing quiet time, but pretty cool to think they can recognize and provide that need. I really like that visual.
So really, I don't know, really interesting beautiful images. What an incredible bond.
So that was super cool to hear because, like I said, when she first offered, I was like, oh no, they're going to tell me what a terrible owner I am. I don't know if that ever actually happens. But yeah, that these were the images that were shown in connection with my horses. That's really cool.
It does, yeah. I don't know. I just had this really strong sense that you guys are, were meant to find each other. And as like I talked about in that podcast, I really, there's this entanglement with you guys that's very intense, and it's like, as you, heal and let go, they heal and let go. And it's just this game of well, it's not a game. It's more.
I mean, I can totally see that because as I feel myself changing, I know that as I feel the thoughts I tell myself internally change, I can feel that physical change, the way I feel and also the way I behave. So I don't think a surprise at all that they might be able to tell, like, oh, we've identified anxiety as one of my struggles. That they wouldn't be able to tell when I'm feeling less anxious. I've always felt like they felt that.
What's the word? This ebb and flow, kind of like the ocean, I guess is what I see like this waves coming out and waves coming in. So it's like you guys, give and receive and give and receive. So you have an incredible relationship. And yeah, if there's, I don't know, anything more you want me to ask about, please feel free. We could do over the phone if there's. I have a really strong, I think, line of communication with them now. So if there's something you want to ask them specifically, we could do that. But I also have a pretty good sense that you are getting messages from them. And
I thought that was pretty cool, especially with the um, place where they kind of related to having the same maternal instinct that I have. That was something that I had just felt, and it was just a thought in my head that I had as I was observing my mare. Cool to think like, no, that's something that you're sharing. The idea that, yeah, that there is a line of communication there. They are beings just like us trying to communicate. I love that.
You are hearing the things that they want to relay, not only them as horses in their physical form, you're really good at hearing them, again, maybe a little bit too much worrying or getting too hyper focused, but I think we all do that.
Yeah, that's true.
And they don't want you to worry too much, but I think you do have you are open and curious enough that you will try to solve the situations. You're open, and they know that you can you get it, you hear them eventually, but also their ascended selves, you are connected to that too, and your messages might come in differently. And I think we talked about that, claircognizance, just this sudden deep knowing
all the time.
And when these things happen, that makes them really happy. But yeah, you guys are really so incredible together. It makes me so happy. I could tell you have had a lot in your your life, pain and suffering, and I think it's really beautiful, magical when the universe aligns and right at the right time what we need shows up to help keep us here.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what happened. They were there when I needed them, when I needed something through a lot of that time. I would say there's two, maybe three people I was able to talk to honestly about what was happening. And they, of course, were life changing, but to have this extra support, this extra space, yeah, it, like I kind of say, it saved me when when we were talking later, Lindsay was saying how she could tell that I got in a really dark place, and not something I really shared with anyone or um, talked about before, but there was a time when it just felt like everything was falling apart, like my old life was just completely obliterated. And I definitely had thoughts like, wouldn't everybody be better off without me? I was probably having struggle with my children, with my husband, with my faith, with everything that you can imagine. And um, I think I was able to identify it really quickly and tell myself, like, I'm not going there. I know what that is. But Lindsay had said that she could see that I hit a really dark place, that I had deep despair, and I did have deep despair. I've shared a little bit before, but there was a time where, like, I didn't even want to go in public. I just wanted to, it was almost like I couldn't stand to face myself. I didn't want anybody to see me. Um, Not very long ago, like probably last year, maybe the year before, I would just walk through public to kids' events with my head down. There was times like I could not cry. So that was a reason why I avoided people. And um, and I guess the reason I want to share that is because life gets dark. There are really dark times. And I think part of why I wanted to share this message is why there were some specifics to me. I really think it's a message for everybody, that there is a divine power there, that the things that you need are put into place. And even with that, you have your choice, and you have to make that choice. When I felt that deepest darkness, I very consciously, very aware, made the choice, my thoughts will not go there again. I was able to identify that they were false with that particular thought. I don't do that with all my thoughts. There are false thoughts that I feed and become destructive towards me. I certainly have in the past. And so I guess for anyone who is struggling, please question the truthfulness of your thoughts and challenge those thoughts that are not good for you, aren't thinking the best for you, because I really do think that there's a divine creator who's really rooting for us, wants the best for us. This isn't something I'm saying off the cuff. I've thought about it deeply, about how God, our creator, feels about us when we're in the depths of sorrow. And I think it's with tremendous love and compassion. And I think that he is cheering for us, rooting for us, and providing the things we need for us. For me, hands down, without a doubt, having horses in my life during that time, I truly believe changed the outcome.
And give us purpose and meaning. And it seems like that is very much for you. Like these horses they're way more than just horses. Big for you. They're big for you. So
yeah, I mean, that's super true. I think if you ever listen to anything I've said, it's not hard to tell that the horses are, they're not just pets. They're not just animals I keep. They are just an integral, important part of my life. They are way more than just horses.
It's beautiful. Okay, yeah. Well, again, if you have any more questions, if you need more clarity on something, I really hope I didn't. See, my ears ringing again.
That made me so curious. So
I hope I didn't try to interpret too much of that, and I'm leaving it for you to kind of get your own meaning out of all of those. It's not like a very clear, like, oh, this means this. It seems like this is going to mean something to you.
So yeah, I think as you can tell from this little conversation, it had a lot of meaning for me. A lot of things really resonated. Some things I'm still exploring, interested to learn more about, to see what happens. But a couple reasons I really wanted to share that, and one is really the power of horses. They've definitely held a significant power in my life. I think that they are meant for some of us, and I think if that's you, you've probably felt that, even if it wasn't recently, maybe as a child. And then I think that I wanted to also share that just to encourage you. Like, I think that you have felt your purpose in this life, that thing you go after. And I'm not talking about what you do for work. I have made zero money off the podcast. I have another job that I work. And so when I say your purpose, I don't think that's always how we provide for ourselves. I think for some people it can be. It hasn't been yet for me. Maybe I'll find some ways to make that happen. That would be cool. But just some of the things that you're meant to do. I think if you're struggling with that, I certainly was. I think deep down, you probably know that. I know for me, I always, I remember when I was finishing my graduate program, when I started it, they were like, what do you want to do with your degree? Mine was help people with horses. And that's always been a thread that has resonated through my life. So if you're struggling to maybe find your purpose, know where you are, I still wouldn't say I fully know mine, but I will say that taking steps towards those things I felt inclined to do, starting a podcast on a whim, those are the steps you should take in that direction. I'm going to include Lindsay's information. If anybody else wants to take advantage of her services, I was absolutely blown away by it. And like I said, I almost went in with some fear, and it was just really cool to hear things that resonated with me closely, to make the connections, to learn a little bit, especially about sweet little freedom. Yeah, I'm super glad that she offered that to me, and that she did that for me. And I would say, if I had known what I would get, I would have thought it's well worth your time, energy, money to have these insights. And I feel like that's what it is, just these insights, this guidance. I think there are things meant for me, and she and people like her, I think they just have a gifted connection there to give those insights. So please reach out if you're interested, have questions. If you got insights I didn't, I'd love to hear what you might have taken from it. And I just really want to encourage everybody, go into this new year and just create something awesome for yourself. Stop looking back as much as you can. It's not always easy. Let go of what's been, both good and bad. I think we can hang on to both too tightly, and just imagine what this new year can bring. I kept getting that message that this was a great way to start the new year with this podcast. I actually attempted to record another podcast today, and it only recorded a small portion of it. So I think this was really meant to be the message for the beginning of the year, to trust yourself this year, to take steps in that direction you feel pulled to. It's not going to happen all at once. You don't have to take a giant leap. Just take a little step that way and see what happens. And I think it'll be really cool. Thanks again for joining me. Share this with anyone else who might enjoy it. And I'll be seeing you on here throughout the year. Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.